Welcome to the 2017 Excellence in Masonry Awards, presented by the Wisconsin Masonry Alliance. The awards presented will recognize the exemplary creativity, craftsmanship, and construction demonstrated by the winners in the following 5 categories: concrete masonry, clay masonry, special project, natural stone masonry, and our Best of Show winner. Each submission was judged on design creativity, distinguishing details, architectural ingenuity, and most importantly, the artful use of masonry to contribute to a successful aesthetic. The judging panel this year included Mike Parnan from Brand Point Design, Jennifer Lerke from Legacy Architecture, Eric Oefs from Bray Architects, and Cliff Mayer from Mayer Helminiak. We begin with 2 merit winners for this year. Merit recognition for concrete masonry goes to Engberg Anderson for the Standard at East Library project. The general contractor was Stevens Construction Corp. The mason contractor was Artega Construction Inc. The WMA producers and suppliers were Artega Construction Inc., Northfield Block and Spec Mix. Merit recognition for clay masonry goes to Strang Incorporated for the M3 office project. The general contractor was the Rentschler Company. The mason contractor was Crowley Masonry. The WMA producers and suppliers were County Materials Corporation and Spec Mix. The first Best of Award acknowledges excellence in the concrete masonry category. The award this year goes to Destry Design Architects, Inc. for the City of Madison Lake Edge Park Shelter Project in Madison, Wisconsin. The general contractor was Joe Daniels Construction. The mason contractor was Lorenz Masonry. The WMA producers and suppliers were County Materials Corporation and Spec Mix.
About 4 years ago, the City of Madison reached out to us and said that they had a vision. What they wanted to do was to reinvest in all of the toilet facilities, park shelters, and stagger them in every so often. And they said, can we design a model building that provides the flexibility for all these different neighborhood parks?
The main thing that the city needed to have was durability. Okay, durability and the ability to have these structures be a modular. So I chose black CMU as my main product because it gave me durability, it gave me the ability to modify and expand the buildings as needed in a modular form. It also gave me a nice contemporary look with the rest of the building. Graffiti is a big problem in the City of Madison, and with the smooth black CMU, I was able to put an anti-graffiti coating on it, which made it more durable.
The Lake Edge Park Shelter is a great example of a small project acting big. You know, a really nice scale and a nice homage to a very simple building type. They took something as pedestrian as a shelter and turned it into a Frank Lloyd Wright-esque quality building.
Through the design process, came up with really being quite happy with a very smooth CMU finish, as well as kind of the organic nature of a cut stone that actually reflects a little bit more the historic past of the Parks Division. Being that it was a municipal project, we actually very specifically detailed the masonry and the stone for the project.
But with the design, that's where I kept it to simple shapes and planes, single post overhang for the canopy part that they couldn't climb up and actually reach the roof. The whole point of this was actually just to keep it low, keep it simple, and kind of just blend in and not really catch your eye.
Within the park or within the environment, we would assume that this building sits as almost a piece of sculpture to be looked at as you approach it. Also, another thing that we thought was interesting is Some park shelters are very utilitarian in nature. This one is actually quite interesting.
We like to have it reflect a fresh, contemporary look and try and maximize all of the innovation you can out of the product. And I think this project makes it feel innovative, but it still actually holds itself into the ground, into the nature, so it's kind of a nice juxtaposition.
Congratulations to Destry Design Architects, Inc. The next award is presented for excellence in the clay masonry category. The award this year goes to Bray Architects for the Cromrie Middle School project in Middleton, Wisconsin. The general contractor was J.H. Findorf and Son, Inc. The WMA producers and suppliers were J.H. Findorf and Son, Inc. and Spec Mix.
The referendum really was based on a middle school solution, district-wide, and so the focus was bringing 5th grade out of the elementary schools. Cromrie specifically, it was taking what was a 6-8 building, it was one of their oldest buildings in the district, and then within that really focused on, what can we do to keep as much of the existing building as we can, just economically, and then put an addition on to support the remainder of the space. A key kind of design cue for us really was what can we do to open up that building onto that conservancy. So the cafeteria has this expanse of glass and invites in a ton of natural light, and when you're in that space you feel as though you're kind of a part of that natural setting. Similarly, the library is a 2-story volume, and we actually were able to spill that library onto a balcony, so you can go outside onto the balcony, and really at the 2nd floor you almost feel like you're in the tree canopy. So it's kind of got this great kind of indoor-outdoor quality. We attempted to utilize natural limestone material as kind of the base of the building, as well as shifted to a clay brick product on top of that.
They used some stone as a base and then complemented it with some masonry on the upper levels, and I think it just fit the site really well, which looked like it had a change of topography, and I think that integration looked very natural with its surroundings, and I think, again, masonry was a perfect choice, and the upper level of that was very complementary in terms of using the clay masonry.
The concept around utilizing clay on the project really was to give the building as timeless of a quality, a building that, one, looks like it could have been on the site for many, many years to today.
The Cromrie Middle School was kind of interesting in the use of materials. I mean, overall, it was a solid project, solidly designed, had a base of stone that had a rough texture to it. The brick also appeared to have a very rough texture to it. The color of the brick was also tied into the color of the accent windows. The window patterning was great. All in all, it was just a very strong project.
Brick, like anything, clay brick specifically, brings that just naturally. And so outside of just making the selection of that as the product, we really had to be sure that it was the right brick. And so what we're attempting to do was kind of give the surface this aged look as much as possible. Focused on, one, a blend, so we have multiple colors in the clay. From most importantly, the educational standpoint, the district has responded very, very well, and there are some things we've been able to accomplish at Cromrie that the district hopes to now instill at some other schools throughout the district.
Congratulations to Bray Architects. Now, for an award appointed for excellence in the special project category. The award this year goes to Leggett Architects for the Avnier Apartments project in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The mason contractor was Keystone Exterior Finishes, LLC. The WMA producer and supplier was Northfield Block.
Programmatically, it's an apartment building, kind of a multi-use building with retail on the first floor to kind of energize the street environment, good urban design. You know, they wanted something that broke down the scale of a very large building to kind of relate to the smaller scale to the north. But by the same token, they wanted something that was, you know, really interesting because the type of renters they were trying to attract were the millennials, so they wanted something that was a little fresh and new.
They took more of a modern material and made it look like it was part of a timeless material, brick, by the use of different colors, different detailing with different thicknesses. You wouldn't have thought that it was a thin brick material.
The Enduramax being a hung system made it much easier and kind of freed us up creatively in terms of how we used masonry. We have a lot of locations where masonry spans horizontally with windows below it, which would have been extremely difficult to do in a traditional bearing masonry building. It was such an incredibly unique situation where we had a client that wanted a unique aesthetic and, you know, all the problems associated with the more traditional type masonry solutions and the desire to do something a little bit more progressive.
It was very interesting because you're taking somewhat archaic material like stone or brick and trying to make it more energy efficient and more modern and more sustainable, and this project was a great example of that use of this new technique. It had interesting stone base to it. It had a different brick material at the top and some other materials. From a design standpoint, it looked good, and I bet the building performs really well too from an energy standpoint.
The only issues that we had to deal with on this was obviously, unlike other materials that are, you know, applied onto a building or basically hung materials, you know, it's a little bit heavy, obviously, and we had to beef up the exterior wall structure. I'm very happy with the results, and I think, you know, the system allowed us to do what we wanted to do aesthetically, and clearly economically we would have never been able to gain that aesthetic with a traditional type masonry installation. The building was almost, I think, 90% rented out within the first 2 months, which, you know, for someone who's, you know, developing a building, that's a very, very good thing. So, you know, I think that's a tribute to, you know, the aesthetics and basically the performance of the building.
Congratulations to Leggett Architects. Moving forward to the natural stone residential category. The award this year goes to C. Rainier Architects for the Bear Residence Project in Hobart, Wisconsin. The general contractor was Bryce Construction. The mason contractor was Bryce Masonry. The WMA producers and suppliers were Halquist Stone and Spec Mix.
Natural stone was a natural in this case because they were looking for that timeless country home feel. So natural stone is what those were built from in the English countryside. One of the natural stones was kind of a castle rock feel. We knew that we wanted to trim out the openings with Indiana limestone, which again enhances the thickness of the stone. The actual selection, we were looking for something with a little color in it to play off of that Indiana limestone trim and on the parapets and around the openings and stuff. The use of the parapets, again, the use of the arches and that Indiana limestone trims around, carving that entry rather than something applied, all kind of gives the feel of thickness and permanence which I think natural stone is great at. It just looks so good over time as well. I mean, it's a material that patinas well, and it actually looks better as it ages.
It was just a very simple, understated structure where the stone really expressed itself in terms of color and scale and detail. I think there was some cut stone that complemented it. There was a certain simplicity and elegance that were all combined into one, and it wasn't trying to be anything more than what it was. It's just a great composition, again, and I think the stone really made it stand out as a residential winner.
As a site challenge on that piece of property, the difficulty was that the rear yard faced north. So a challenging aspect was trying to get light penetration into the house. So we used the stair tower as a bit of a lantern with a skylight on top of it, which allows the light to penetrate into the center of the house.
The way they broke down the different elements, the garage element and then there's another side wing, they really broke the scale down so that it wasn't just one massive wall. With all that heavy stone in there, it made it lighter the way they did it. So I think a combination of scale and you know, the ins and outs that made that house so effective.
I was very appreciative of the whole team aspect. It's very satisfying going to the site, working on details, and when you have a team of people, clients, the general contractor, the mason, we're all interested in the vision. They understand the vision, trying to work out all the details to make sure that it all comes together well. I think that's what this house is all about. It is a stone house, and was designed that way, and it was built that way.
Congratulations to C. Rainier Architects. Lastly, the winner for the Natural Stone commercial category, which has also earned the award for 2017 Best of Show. The award this year goes to Canon Design for the UW Cancer Center at Pro Healthcare Project in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The general contractor was Gilbane Construction. The mason contractor was Artega Construction, Inc. The WMA producers and suppliers were Artega Construction, Inc., Hauquist Stone, and Spec Mix.
One of the interesting things about the choice to put stone on the building, we see it as an opportunity to actually use the material that comes naturally out of the ground here, right in your backyard, but maybe use it in a way that's different. What we ended up with, and this is one of my favorite things about the building, instead of very smooth-faced stone, we ended up coming up with a custom pattern for the stone based on all of those natural qualities that the guys at the quarry were talking to us about. We wanted to make sure that when you were in this building, that there were moments, plenty of moments in the building where you could feel connected to the landscape, because our feeling about it was that if you could feel that way as a human in the building, you would feel better.
The UW Cancer Center is a very elegant building. The way that they integrated this decorative brick into stone and brick, that dark brick together into the glass, I thought was just really just a good treatment. They took a very large building and that's mostly masonry and made it still feel pretty light, the way the openings and the masonry work together.
So ultimately what we ended up doing is, instead of sitting the stone on the ground, let's not ground it. Let's lift it up in the air so that the welcoming that happens in underneath, people when they start arriving, they're not going through a single door. There's a whole welcoming aspect to the building that's at the lower level of the building. That relationship of taking something, a natural material, coming up with an innovative way of expressing it in a building and doing it in a way that sort of plays to the craft rather than sort of ignores the craft.
Great use of materials and great contrast between the materials, from the light colored stone box to the very dark brick material that's recessed behind, and also interesting accent features at the windows. It was all around a very nice design, a nice composition for Cancer Center. It seemed inviting and a place that you would want to go to be treated.
But we chose to sort of introduce other materials as those sort of slices through the stone. So in our minds, the stone became even stronger because it was standing side by side with a much less traditional material. This building has been really, really well received from the community. Is every time you walked through the building and said anything to anybody, or they knew that you were part of the design team, they were coming up to you and like saying, "This is the most amazing place I've ever had to work in. Thank you for doing this."
Congratulations to Canon Design. In closing, a special thank you to this year's strategic partners: County Materials Corporation, Halquist Stone Company, Spec Mix, and Northfield Block. On behalf of the Wisconsin Masonry Alliance, thank you for the submissions, and to the attendees of the 2017 Excellence in Masonry Awards. After looking back to acknowledge and admire the award-winning work of the previous year, now is the time to find inspiration and look to the future. We encourage to continue to marry form, function, and fearless creativity in an effort to realize excellence in masonry. Congratulations to this year's winners. Best wishes to all those aspiring to win next year. Thank you for attending the 2017 Excellence in Masonry Awards. Until next year.